Binge the full week of The Ray Taylor Show ad-free over at inspireddisorder.com/plus.
This is The Ray Taylor Show.
Laal Singh Chaddha is the movie I'm talking about today. It recently came out on Netflix. It's a movie I was looking forward to. This is the Indian remake of the classic film Forrest Gump, a movie that I've seen probably 100 times, a movie that I, in a lot of ways, grew up watching. The Tom Hanks classic film, comedy, heartwarming film. And I was looking forward when I saw that Aamir Khan was coming out with a new movie that was a remake of Forrest Gump. I'm a big fan of Aamir Khan. I've been watching a lot of his movies. Within all of the Indian films I've been watching this year, I've kind of discovered, well, in my world, discovered Aamir Khan, and have been a big fan of his movies. And him playing the lead character in this movie seems to fit pretty well. He definitely is a Tom Hanks type. He reminds me a lot of Robin Williams as well in some of his movies. And, you know, just kind of does a lot of movies that are heartwarming and, you know, trying to heartwarming, but also, you know, trying to get you to think outside of the box in some ways. Three Idiots, one of my favorite movies of all time after having recently watched it this past year. So with that said, I was very excited to watch this movie, and in talking about this movie, obviously I will be spoiling aspects of it. I'm going to be doing a lot of comparing of this movie to the original Forrest Gump, which there are some interesting changes, some changes for the better, or at least very interesting changes, maybe just kind of makes the story and aspects of certain characters even more interesting than they were in the original. And some things I think that it falls flat on. Overall, I thought it was a good movie, though. I don't think it necessarily rises to the level of the original Forrest Gump. But that said, there were a lot of aspects of this that obviously I didn't get because I didn't grow up in India. I don't know the history of India. And, of course, when it comes to this movie, if you're familiar with the original Forrest Gump, obviously there's a lot of tie-ins to historical events, to a lot of pop culture. And because of my ignorance, obviously the historical tie-ins and pop culture references went over my head. Obviously, the historical stuff ties in and you see it through the movie. So even though I don't know the framing of what was going on, I knew those were historical references. However, there's probably a lot of pop culture references that I just didn't even notice because I don't know the popular culture in India for the past, 40 years or whatever. Definitely not in the same way I do American history and American culture, pop culture. So those two aspects of it, I was well aware that those two things were going to be going over my head. But still, even despite that, there were some changes that I didn't like, that I thought made the movie a little bit less than comparatively to the original. Which there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, obviously, Aamir Khan seems to go for more. It's definitely even more of a family movie than the original Forrest Gump, which I think was a family movie. I saw Forrest Gump when I was a kid, when it was in theaters. But this one feels like it's even more like G-rated. Because one of the things, so I will be spoiling aspects of this movie. So if you don't want to, I guess I'll give us a quick overview, but if you don't want to be spoiled, obviously don't watch this. I'm not going to necessarily go through all of the beats of this movie, but in comparing it to the original Forrest Gump, there's going to be a lot of character discussion and things like that. And I think, like, the The Lieutenant Dan character in this movie, which is completely different type of a character, which I'll kind of get into detail of that, I think was a very interesting change. The Jenny character in this, which her name is Rupa, I think that was the biggest downgrade in this movie character-wise. The Rupa character in this movie is not even close to as like tortured and damaged and tragic as the Jenny character is in the original. And also, I feel like this movie didn't have the amount of comedy that the original had. Definitely didn't have the catchphrases. At least it didn't feel like it, which I don't know if that's something that you can necessarily capture with a remake necessarily, you know. But one of the aspects of Forrest Gump that made it one of the many things that made Forrest Gump such a classic is the catchphrases. In addition to, you know, him being in historical things, the footage where he's interacting with historical figures, that's a little bit toned down. There's definitely has the like news footage of historical stuff, and there's moments where he is in some of that footage, but not to the extent that Forrest Gump was. So those were kind of the main things I felt. And also the Bubba character, his name's Bala in this, that changed. It's no longer shrimp, it's underwear. But the way they tie this change in with the movie, I think fits in a lot of ways. So a lot of different changes, but I'll get more into depth in that when I talk about the movie. But just to kind of give a quick overview of some of the changes, some of the things that I thought were better or worse. And it's on Netflix. It's a movie I thought I was going to have to wait. I thought it was probably coming out next year, you know, as far as things getting released, especially international release, getting streaming and all that stuff. It seemed like it hit Netflix a lot sooner than I had expected. And I was so stoked when I saw it show up on the menu last week. So I made sure that it was going to be my featured review for the week, my Monday review for the week, because I was excited to watch it. And I wasn't disappointed, but it wasn't, it missed the mark in a few ways. And I may have enjoyed it more if I wasn't constantly comparing it to the original. But I don't know what to tell you. I couldn't divorce myself from knowing a movie that I've seen so many times. I grew up watching one of my favorite movies. I even watched it fairly recently and still really love the movie. And, you know, and I think this does a lot of interesting things. I think it's a fun remake, but it definitely feels like a lot of, especially with the comedy, it lost a little bit of its edge, right? Not only losing some of the comedy, but also the changes in the love interest character, the Jenny character, which in this one, her name is Rupa. So, all that said, whatever. It's still a fun movie. So, it still opens with a feather. Even the score, it's not the same score, but it has elements. It definitely, like, it hits a few notes. It's got that piano, hits a few notes that reminds me that it's like, oh, it's almost like when they have, like, you'll watch a commercial and they didn't actually purchase the rights to a popular song, but it's a song that sounds really close to a popular song. That's kind of what the score of this movie has, like, elements. It gives you the impression of the original score to Forrest Gump. So I kind of enjoyed that. I kind of like the slight altering of that, changing it a little bit. Still gives me that, like, nostalgic feeling that I'm watching Forrest Gump. And then the feather, instead of our main character sitting on a bench waiting for a bus, we are Aamir Khan's character, Laal, the feather floats through a bus station. He's taking a bus. So as the original movie is Forrest Gump telling all of these stories to people that are periodically sitting down at the bus stop with him over the course of the movie, This is Laal telling his stories while taking a bus somewhere, obviously to go see Rupa, which is, you know, a lot of the beats are very much the same. And this just details and things are slightly changed. So you still get that kind of fun thing. There's still moments where the people that are listening to his stories don't believe that he's like this successful person. They, you know, obviously all of the historical type of references, you get that same kind of reaction from the people that are listening to him on the thing. Instead of a box of chocolates, it's a box of this. I looked it up, and it's a popular snack that almost looks like an egg, but it's like a crispy, like a crackery almost. I don't know what it is, but it looks like an egg that's hollowed out, and there's like meats and vegetables in there, and you put like this spicy juice in it and eat it. It's like a popular snack. It looked delicious. So that's changed, not chocolates. It's this other thing. His catchphrases, like the things my mama always told me type of quotes that Forrest Gump had. These quotes are different, and are the quotes that he has, like from his mom, are more like quotes that you would actually hear people say, versus in Forrest Gump, those quotes that his mom had were like just slightly off. Like they were just like they felt like they were just re-engineered slightly to sound like a common piece of advice, but in a way that fits with that character, where it's like, you know, he's special. He's has a learning disability, but you know, he's just like has a different perspective on everything. And all of the quotes that his mom had kind of related to that perspective, and that like slightly different, slightly fresh, slightly new. And I appreciated that in the first movie. That's why they were so memorable. Like, stupid is as stupid does. Life is like a box of chocolates. You know, it's like new kind of catchphrases, but things the way Forrest says them in the original come off like they should be colloquialisms or whatever. Whereas this one, it actually just feels like they're saying common turns of phrases. So loses a little bit on that. And overall less jokes, right? Like one of the funniest jokes I remember in the original is when his mom is going to get him into school, right? But his IQ is too low. And there's the scene of like, you know, him asking where the dad is, like, oh, he's on vacation. He's on vacation, right? And then you see cut to Forrest sitting out on the porch, hearing the moaning going on. And then when the school teacher comes out, Forrest moans to it. Hilarious scene, right? Not even close to in this. Like, similar thing. She's taking him to get into a school. Doesn't have the IQ for it. And she just offers to be his maid. Like, oh, I'll clean your dishes and clean up and all this stuff. And then the guy's like, well, since your mom is so dedicated to your education, I will just let you in, right? Very, like, no sexual innuendo whatsoever. Like, that edge that was in the original Forrest Gump missing from this movie, right? So, like, a scene that was hilarious. You know, even as a kid, I may not have even understood what was going on, but, like, it was funny. It was hilarious, that scene. So a lot less jokes, a lot less edge in this movie. And then again, historical references. This one, a lot of it had to do, like a lot of the historical stuff and wars and terrorist attacks and things like that were religious based. So there is kind of that religious take on it, which is similar to Aamir Khan's film PK, which was all about it's an alien coming down to Earth and kind of learning about all of the different religions, trying to find quote-unquote God because he thinks he's a person that will help him get his remote back so he can get his spaceship. So it has that kind of very similar element, but, you know, not taken on as much as PK was, but that's a lot of the historical things that happen in this are related to religious uprisings and terror attacks and wars and things like that were like done so for religious purposes, which is sad that so much death and war are caused by, like, are done so in the name of God. You know, I mean, we see that in America now with the rise of Christian nationalists and the huge amount of terrorist attacks that are done by white Christian men, whether it's bombing of Planned Parenthoods or mass shootings. It's just, it's sad that so often religion extremism from all religions goes down a similar path of evil. So you get a little bit of that with this movie, where every time there's kind of like an outbreak, his mom calls to tell him there's a malaria outbreak, so stay inside your room. You know, this kind of, which, you know, is funny, but I don't know. It just, it felt like there could have been more tie-in, I guess, you know, like the first one.
Let's take a little break from the show to promote.
If you sign up for Inspired Disorder Plus for 1 year specifically, you get a free painting. So a year subscription of Inspired Disorder Plus is $50. The painting, the majority of them are $100. So it's a $150 value signing up for 1 year of Inspired Disorder Plus. So not only do you get a free painting, but you also are subscribed to Plus for a year, which means that you can binge this show, The Ray Taylor Show, ad-free, the full week, ad-free, available on Monday. You also get discounts that are members-only pricing type of deals. All of the podcasts that I've produced in the past, close to 20 different podcasts I've produced, hundreds of episodes. There's also my personal blog. You can ask me anything if you want to start podcasting or get into art. All of that stuff available in addition to a free painting when you sign up to 1 year subscription of Inspired Disorder Plus.
Head on over to inspireddisorder.com/plus and become an Inspired Disorder Plus member today. And now let's get back to the show.
And like I said, Jenny is Rupa in this, so same kind of love interest. The Jenny character, like I said, Rupa is not even close to as tragic. As a child, in the original, she was living with her dad, and her dad would like molest her, right? But in this one, he beats her mom, right? So she's not involved, but her dad's he's not a good guy, but it's definitely a different type of a thing. And when they pray, they're not praying for God to make her a bird to fly far, far away, which is another one of those aspects of the original that is like a new kind of a take on a thing, right? Similarly to the catchphrases. In this one, she prays for money, because that's what he's beating her mom over, is money. So she prays to be rich, which is kind of a bummer, to pray to be rich, you know, as if God cared. Like, as if any God answers any kinds of prayers. Like, kids have cancer, kids get molested by priests all the time. Like, I don't know. Anyway, it was just another one of those changes that's like, it's like missing that edge, and that character. Like, that character being so like the Jenny character in Forrest Gump being so like tragic is like makes the fact that like Forrest's love for her unconditional means so much more, because he's in love with this broken, tragic figure who, because of her trauma in childhood, ends up having, you know, a lot of people repeat trauma throughout their life, so she ends up repeating that trauma, which this character does as well, but she gets into like abusive relationships where people hit her, which that's kind of similar, but you never have that same feeling for Rupa that you do Jenny. And even this movie has that attempted suicide scene where like she's in the Forrest Gump, she's like high at a party, and she's going out to like, stumbling outside to get some fresh air, and then, kind of has the idea to just, maybe just throw herself off the balcony. And in this one, she's just kind of alone at home and does the same thing, and it's played so much different. The tension is so far, because it doesn't feel as authentic as when Jenny does it in Forrest Gump. Right? The Jenny character, because it's so tragic, you feel like maybe this is a decision she might take. Whereas in this one, she's in an abusive relationship because she's like with a producer or director because she wants to be a movie star. But it's like, it doesn't feel like she is that intertwined into like that situation. Like, it doesn't feel like as desperate a situation for her as it was for Jenny. So that was kind of, it, and it's a sweet relationship, all that, but it just, because it wasn't, that contrast wasn't there, like in Forrest Gump, it didn't hit as well as the original. The Bubba character is named Bala, and instead of his family being the shrimping business, his family was in the undergarments business. And, Laal ends up learning how to sew undergarments and does really well while they're in boot camp. He's also puts guns together fast and all that kind of stuff. It doesn't have it kind of has the scene where Bubba is talking about all the different kinds of shrimp. You do kind of get a scene where the other dude's talking about the different types of undergarments. But that's the business after the war, that, they have a plan to get into business together. And instead of a hurricane that allows them to catch all of the shrimp, like they were the only boat that survived the hurricane in Forrest Gump, this one is they changed the name from Bala undergarments to Rupa undergarments, which I looked up, and Rupa clothing is a major brand in India. So it ties in, instead of like inventing Bubba Gump shrimp, they tied in an actual brand, and then when they changed the name, that's when it took off. So I kind of like that. And then the Lieutenant Dan character, very interesting. This is probably the most interesting change and biggest change to the whole movie. So instead of Lieutenant Dan, Laal goes into the military, and they go on some mission. It's not Vietnam. It's desert. It's some Middle East. I don't know the details of what battle, what was going on, but it's like a desert mountain type of a scenario instead of jungle. And they're going in pretty much like ambushed or whatever. And it's the same thing where they're getting fired upon, and Laal does the thing where he runs and he saves, going back to save Bala, but, ends up seeing other people hurt and saving all of them. And one of the people he saves was the enemy, kind of the leader of the enemy, Muhammad Paji, right? He just sees him and takes him and saves this guy who was the enemy, who was the guy who was leading the troops to kill all of Laal's friends. So that's very interesting. And it was a religious, I think he may have been Sikh. I'm not entirely sure. I could be wrong on that. But it felt like it was a war based on religious purposes, right? Because that was a big thing that they have. There's a discussion he has with Laal about how he learned that, like, he was taught that, like, people that weren't in his religion were evil, as happens with religious extremists. And Laal isn't very specifically religious. Like, one of the things his mom told him is that, God is in everybody, and it doesn't matter what, you do, what religion you are. It's just he's always within you. Like, a very, like, a very inclusive type of an ideal, not specific to any kind of religious belief. And it's something where Laal's character opens this enemy, Muhammad Paji, up to, being, and then obviously he works with him. He's going to be his marketing manager to take over since Bala died. Obviously same as, the Forrest Gump movies. The Bubba character dies, and then after the war, Forrest goes and does the shrimp thing. After the war, Laal goes and does the undergarment thing, and Muhammad becomes his, after finding out that Laal actually did what he said he was going to do, get 3 sewing machines, hire 2 other people to sew. They follow Bala's plan to the T, and he showed up one day to, honor his word that he would be the marketing manager. He's the one that came up with changing the name to Rupa. So that was interesting, that Lieutenant Dan character. And again, similarly, they spend a New Year's together, but they're not with prostitutes like in the first one. Just another one of many examples of this movie losing that edge, being more G-rated, which I think, probably Forrest Gump was probably PG, maybe, right? So it's not even Forrest Gump wasn't very graphic in any way, but you could tell a lot of those just little things, with the Jenny character, and then even the edge with Muhammad Paji, the Lieutenant Dan character was very troubled as well. And in both of these, it's a slight difference, toned down a little bit, and because of that, you don't get that contrast, and you don't it means so much more. At least to me, it feels like it means more in the Forrest Gump. And then in the military, he never gets into ping pong. So ping pong and the bench, there's references in this movie, but he's never the bench is where his mom sat while he went to school to wait for him, right? Because they didn't take the bus like the Forrest Gump. So that's how the bench is kind of implemented into this. And then ping pong is just a very small just reference where they play ping pong. He teaches his son ping pong. So those 2 aspects completely taken out, where, a lot of that in the military was just he never gets into anything after being injured. He kind of just goes home and has money, gets enough money to start his business, right? Whereas the Forrest Gump character, he starts the shrimping business from the money he got from ping pong. But in this one, when he does become successful with the clothing thing, he builds a hospital in the region he lives and offers free health care to people, right? So when his mom gets sick, she has great care. When the Jenny character, when Rupa gets sick later on, she gets care as well, which I like that. I mean, that's healthcare in America is one of the biggest jokes. So if there were a free clinic that had state of the art stuff, that would be it would be so easy for one of these many billionaires to do something good for humanity by doing stuff like that. But of course, they're more worried about collecting more money. And also, another thing that was changed was when in the beginning where he's got the braces, and in the Forrest Gump thing, it's his legs are fine. It's just his back is crooked like a question mark. And in this one, it's his legs are fine. It's just his mind. Which the Forrest Gump one, on some level, makes sense, I guess. They're correcting the legs maybe to change his posture to fix his back, I guess. But, him having a lower IQ, having braces doesn't make any sense why he would have braces on his legs. And that doctor ended up running the hospital that he builds. So that aspect, that change, made the least amount of sense. He's still He's got braces on his legs, but, you know.
Let's take a little break from the show to promote
Gift certificates. If you want to purchase artwork for somebody, you have an art lover in your life, and you think they would like my art, but you don't know what painting to get them. I have over 2,000 original pieces of art for sale in my store, along with shirts and prints and other things. So I can understand that being a bit daunting if you're trying to buy something for somebody else. Give them the gift certificate, and then they can go to my website, inspireddisorder.com, and they can buy whatever paintings they want. They can buy whatever prints they want. They can buy t-shirts. They can buy hats. They can buy all the different merch. Gift certificates, which are available currently at inspireddisorder.com.
And now let's get back to the show.
And instead of playing football, obviously they don't have football in India, he runs track. But still the same jokes where it's like, oh, he doesn't stop. And in the military, instead of playing ping pong, he runs track. That's what he does after his injury. Which is like, okay. It's not as interesting as the Forrest Gump because there's different things. It's not like he played football for the military. He got into ping pong, right? Which makes sense because he just had an injury to his... He got shot in the butt, same as this movie. So kind of being... You know, not having to run around and do stuff makes sense, whereas becoming a runner doesn't necessarily make sense after having an injury like that, but whatever. Let's see, what else? What else? Yeah, the Rupa's parents just fought, prayed for money. The running, you know, when he just felt like running. Another thing from Forrest Gump, just how I just felt like running, you know? Not necessarily, it doesn't have the performance from Aamir Khan. It was definitely his own take on this type of a character. And it definitely had more of kind of Aamir Khan's charm. Right? Kind of similar in some ways to PK. That kind of just like innocent joy that he kind of exudes in that movie is present in this movie. So his take on the character is a little bit different. And I wouldn't know if he had some kind of accent in this. You know, I don't know. I haven't watched enough Indian films to be able to identify different accents from different regions. But it felt like it didn't have that little zhuzh, you know? But he does do the running thing. And that is one part that obviously is completely different because instead of Forrest Gump, who ran from coast to coast in America, we got to see all these beautiful kind of scenes from America. In this, you get to see all of the beauty that India has to offer. And I got to say, India's got America beat on just gorgeous vistas and views and just amazing. I mean, everything. That's one of the things I absolutely love about getting into Indian films is that every aspect of Indian life looks different than what I'm used to here in America. From what their cities look like, what the rural parts look like, what just the natural landscape everywhere and the different types of landscape everywhere. Not that there's not a vast variety of different types of landscape in the U.S., but, you know, definitely has a different look and even more epic, I would say, you know? So when he goes on his run, it's beautiful. And even still on his run, unlike the Forrest Gump, right? The Forrest Gump, he gets, you know, shit, or he gets splashed in the face, and he cleans his face off with a shirt, and it's the happy face, basically what is the emoji happy face now, right? Which, you know, oh, that's it. Forrest Gump invented that design, and the catchphrase of shit happens. Right, so much of Forrest Gump was just infused with all of that pop culture stuff and all of those just little things Whereas it didn't feel like this movie did. It really didn't. And there's stuff that I missed, but it really didn't feel like it. I mean, there's the early scene when he's a kid, you know, in Forrest Gump. It's him teaching Elvis the wiggle. And in this one, it's teaching a famous Bollywood actor like how to just spread his arms wide when he does his thing. And apparently that was a big thing that actor did in his performances, was just kind of spreading his arms wide, you know, like he's hugging the universe. So it had that. That's clearly a pop. Like, I could acknowledge that, like, oh, that's cool. That's a cool change from Elvis to this. But it just felt like it was missing a lot of that stuff. But the run was beautiful. I really enjoyed that. Rupa's relationship, you know, it's not like she gets in a relationship with, I don't know if he's a producer or a director, but she gets in a relationship with him with the intention of him putting her as lead in his movies. And of course he doesn't, but apparently he's like involved in a murder that she ends up helping the police with, which I assume is a real thing that happened. There was an Indian producer, director that was involved in murders, and his wife or confidant or whatever her label was helped the police in you know, kind of giving them all the information. So, you know, that changed the character a bit, which, you know, it was fine. It just, she never gets addicted to drugs that we see. Like, the tragic nature of her character was not nearly like in, you know, Forrest Gump. But one thing this movie, the last bit, that I'm very impressed with, something I've mentioned before when talking about another Aamir Khan film, Dangal, which is about wrestling, which is Aamir Khan's ability, which is something that Tom Hanks is known for as well, is body transformation. I would imagine there was CG in conjunction with him losing weight and whatnot, but Aamir Khan's ability to transform his body is astounding. And apparently the young Aamir Khan, or the young Laal in this movie, was him just lost a bunch of weight. It seems like they cleaned up his face digitally, you know, like removed wrinkles and things, because the dude is 57 years old, Aamir Khan. And there is, I mean, it's not even like a major body transformation like in Dangal, where he seems like just a normal but ripped guy, and then just gets huge, and then gets fat on top of that. Like, the body transformation in Dangal is crazy. In this one, he goes from like looking like he's 20 when he's playing young Laal, not child Laal, but like in, you know, about to go into the military Laal, or in the military Laal, right, in the 20s. And then as he gets older, like, he fills out more and just looks like a healthy 30-year-old. But it's amazing. It is astounding, his ability. And obviously there had to have been just little digital cleanup on his face to make it look younger. Because I saw photos, I looked online to make sure it was like they didn't just cast him and like did a face swap thing. And there's pictures of him thin and looking like his body looks like he's 20, but his face still he just looks like he lost a lot of weight. And in this, it's insane. It's insane. But like, it's just one of the many aspects of Aamir Khan that I really enjoy and like respect, as far as, you know, as far as an actor willing to put them through that. I mean, he is a producer and all these things, so, you know, he's willing to sacrifice himself
for his own projects that he is, he's all in, kind of like a Tom Cruise kind of a character. So I appreciate that. I would love to see Aamir Khan in an American film. Like, I would love to see him work with like a Rian Johnson or something like that, or I guess a Tarantino. Right? There's some directors I think that it would be amazing to see him kind of reach out. But I bet he's making way more money in India doing his own stuff. But it would be cool to see him and stuff in America. But I really enjoyed the movie. Definitely more G-rated than the original. Doesn't have the edge. Doesn't have the jokes that the original does. Doesn't have the catchphrases like the original does. It doesn't have his mom's words of... I mean, it definitely has words of wisdom from his mom, but they don't have the flavor that the Forrest Gump version had. And maybe I would have enjoyed it more if I understood all of the historical references. But, I got it enough. I don't know. It was good, though. And this is directed by Advait Chandan. So I don't know if I've seen any more of his stuff. But, it looked beautiful. It was well directed. I had fun. I wasn't, like, disappointed, but it didn't reach the levels that Forrest Gump did for me. Put it that way. But check it out. It is on Netflix. Laal Singh Chaddha. Check it out. New episodes of The Ray Taylor Show come out every single day. Subscribe on YouTube and everywhere our podcasts are found. Binge the full week over at inspireddisorder.com/plus. Buy Ray Taylor Show merch over at inspireddisorder.com. And follow the show on Instagram at Ray Taylor Show. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Peace out!
Today is the day where you wake up and you realize that everything that you've been dreaming about, everything that you've been wanting, every goal and wish and hope that you've ever had can become real. Dreams can come true. What you manifest in your mind, you can bring to reality.